Welcome, everyone, to the Archaeology of Connecticut. I'm Glenda Rose, President of Friends of the Office of State Archaeology, here with former President Scott Brady and guest archaeologist Dr. Bill Farley. Today's program is on video game archaeology. Now, the definition of archaeology, according to the American Heritage Dictionary, is the study of the past through material remains, often focused upon the life and culture of ancient peoples, but also applied to the more recent past in American usage. So based on this, I'm very curious to understand how the video game culture fits in. So here's Dr. Farley and his guest to educate us.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for the introduction. So my name is Dr. Bill Farley. I've been on the show a couple times in the past, but I'm really excited to be back and guest hosting this time in lieu of Sarah, our normal host, our wonderful state archaeologist. So this question about video game archaeology or archaeogaming, it's a weird one, right? I know for a lot of our audience today, you're here hearing about great sites in Connecticut, great archaeologists working in Connecticut. This one's a little bit different, so maybe we need a little bit more grounding. So archaeogaming, as it's called in the biz, is the study of this intersection, this place where video games and archaeology meet. And it has a long tradition built on the back of people looking at media criticism in movies and television shows that represent archaeology or that archaeologists could bring a unique perspective to, but applying this to games. Now, you might not know this, but video games are one of the biggest businesses in the world. It's bigger than movies in a lot of ways, bigger than books. It's a huge entertainment industry. It's worthy of criticism. It's worthy of thought. It's worthy of bring an intellectual analysis to. So that's what we're doing in archaeogaming. So today we're going to kind of explore that, try and define it, try and think about what it is, and introduce all of you to it. So I guess I should start by sort of fully introducing myself, and then maybe we can go from there. So as we said, my name's Dr. Bill Farley. I'm an associate professor at Southern Connecticut State University, teaching the anthropology department there. I teach archaeology classes as well as other courses. And I also run a YouTube channel that's called Video Game Archaeology. So it's at youtube.com/c/video game archaeology. You should go and subscribe for sure. Like and subscribe, do all of that. And that project, what we're going to talk about today, not just my project, but the broader topic, really came from during the pandemic. Like everybody else, I was feeling pretty down, pretty isolated, pretty closed off from folks, and just looking for something, new hobbies, something to do. And the thing I'd thought about for a long time was this about video games, which are something that's been important to me since I was a little kid. Some of my first memories, 4, 5, 6 years old, were playing games with my dad, playing video games with my brothers, and they really enriched my life. There's something I've thought about for all of my life. But of course, this other great passion of mine, which was archaeology, which I loved so much I made a career out of it, I wanted to know how those two things met in the middle. So I started this YouTube channel, Video Game Archaeology. And I thought, man, I must be pretty cool because I got this name, Video Game Archaeology. That's got to be, I must be inventing something new here. I must have really, really found something here. And I just started making videos, pretty bad videos at first, and I got better at it as I went. And it was bringing me a lot of joy and a lot of benefit. And then I realized, as I started to do more research, that actually this was a whole thing. This was a whole little discipline out there. There were these clubs of groups of very cool, interesting people doing cool work in this realm of archaeogaming, and I got to meet some of them. And so some of our guests today, I know we have Anna Coon, who is an archaeologist. I'll let you introduce yourself, Anna, but just who's become a really good friend of mine this year, doing archaeogaming, and maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us, who you are and where you come from and what kind of archaeology you do and that sort of thing.
Yeah, totally. It also looks like Mike is on hold right now, but hi everybody. My name is Anna Coon. I am a pre-contact archaeologist coming to you from Eastern Washington. I'm also an archaeogamer. I'm the secretary for Association for Washington Archaeology here in Washington, a host of the Digging to the Other Side podcast. And I dabble in a bunch of other side things, including what's called the Archaeogaming Collective, which I think we'll be talking about a little bit later on the show.
Great. I don't know if we have Mike yet. Do we now? Maybe not. We'll see if he finds his way in. So hopefully, if Mike pops in a bit, we'll get him in and get him to introduce himself too. Anna, I suspect the two of us can probably fill some time. I think we could probably do it. What do you think? We're pretty good at talking, the two of us. So I think where we can maybe start, just for our audience, is trying to define what archaeogaming is. So one little touch point I have is a news story that you all might have heard about a few years ago, which was this archaeologist named Andrew Reinhard, who is a really cool guy. I've gotten to meet him a couple of times digitally now. And he chased down and did this excavation of this horde of discarded Atari cartridges from the early 1980s, including thousands and thousands from this game E.T., which was based on the film E.T.
It was a horrible game.
Oh yeah, I mean, did you get to play that back in the day, Scott?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, Scott was admitting to me before we started that he's an old school gamer. He's been playing video games since the 70s, which is really cool. So that's new. It was new info to me. And so this game is infamously bad, and it came out right at the time when the whole video game industry was just collapsing, just imploding. And so Atari got rid of all these games. They dumped these games in some dump in the middle of the night and hid it. And Dr. Reinhard chased this down, and he did this excavation, and it was covered in national news because people thought this was funny. It was pretty funny, right? So in some ways, that could be a definition of archaeogaming. That's a very literal definition of archaeogaming, right? Literally digging up archaeological video games, but it's got a broader definition than that. Reinhardt himself has given it a much broader definition. So I thought maybe we could try and tackle that, Anna, to start with what maybe we think is the definition of archaeogaming. How would you sort of define it, or what do you think are some good examples of cool archaeogaming people are doing?
Yeah, so the broad term that is archaeogaming, right? It's a bit challenging to hone in on an all-encompassing definition that covers everything in under one or two sentences for this one. But what I can say is archaeogaming is something that is constantly growing and changing over time, just as games and technology is always growing and changing. I mean, we didn't even have VR headsets until, a few years ago? At least the ones that we can have and purchase at home, right? But archaeogaming can be used differently depending on who you ask. For me, archaeogaming refers to a kind of framework in which games can be studied for archaeological and chronological purposes, but can also provide a digital landscape in which we, as archaeologists, can interact with under the archaeological lens that we're trained to have in the first place. Like I said, or I didn't yet, I have used archaeogaming as a tool to help students visualize sites, but also to practice using the archaeological perspectives that we try to teach them in class, how to be more observant of small details and context that isn't readily handed to them or easily noticed, how to understand the importance of material culture and changing landscapes over time, how to keep an open mind when placing yourself in the past, things like having students do pedestrian surveys in a game across a landscape and take note of what they see besides what the quest is telling you to do. For instance, game developers might place the remains of a wagon on a landscape in a cowboy game, but, because it looks cool and it might not be referenced by characters in the game, but to us as archaeologists, it means that people came through the area, and we might then start to look for a road. To us, games are sites that can be studied or interacted with, whether that be as a glimpse into social commentary of the time the game was made, like those old Atari games you mentioned, Bill, or as a hugely multifaceted archaeological site that we can all explore and learn about.
I love that. Yeah. So we have Mike now, I think. Yeah. So thank you, Anna. That was fantastic. So Mike, thanks for joining us. We really just got started, so you didn't miss too much. But Anna was just giving us like a really cool intro to some different ways we can think about what archaeogaming is and how it's used. It made me think, Anna, really quick before I throw it to Mike, using it as a teaching tool you were talking about. I love that idea because when I talk about games in the classroom, I was really nervous about doing it. Like last year, the first time I was teaching, and I'd already started this project, and I was like, "Oh, am I going to tell them about this YouTube channel? Am I going to tell them about this?" And then I did, and it was amazing. The students' eyes like light up because it's a thing they connect with. For students, so many, not all of them, but a lot of them, most of them, play games of some kind, right? They play in video games, they understand that. And it just gets them thinking in this different way. And I can say, hey, have you played a Zelda game? Have you thought about when you're going through a Zelda game, how the artists put together that world and they make it feel like a place, and they put these little history notes and little ruins in there and different characters from different cultures, and it can get those neurons firing for students in a different way. And then it's really easy to say, okay, now let's look at a real archaeological site and use those same skills. But that was just my thought.
Absolutely.
There. Yes. But Mike, I thought maybe could you introduce yourself for everybody, tell us who you are, what kind of archaeology you do, where you came from, how you got involved in archaeogaming and that sort of thing.
Sure. I'm currently assistant professor and director of the public archaeology concentration at anthropology department at Bridgewater State University in Massachusetts. I got my PhD from the Joukowsky Institute for Archaeology in the Ancient World, and my graduate work was originally in the Middle East. But I've also most recently worked in New England, excavating in Massachusetts and Connecticut. My research interests include antiquities trafficking, cultural heritage law and public policy, collections-based research, and of course, archaeogaming. Regarding archaeogaming, I've been a gamer my entire life, mostly focusing on board games and role-playing games, along with strategy-based video games and online RPGs. So when Sarah, Bill, and Christiana first initiated the first ArchaeCon or Archaeogaming Con in 2020, I jumped in at the chance to be able to get into that. My main research focuses on the use of board games and RPGs in game-based learning and gamification in the archaeology classroom, and exploring the archaeology of 4X model video games like Civilization and Age of Empires, and specifically looking at issues of representation and how settler colonialism is depicted in these games. And mostly it's just an excuse to hang out with cool people like Anna and yourself.
So Mike, I love that. I don't think I even realized you were doing all that cool stuff. That's awesome. So you mentioned one of the things we were talking about is the audience here might not be super familiar with a lot of different games. So I had a question here that I wanted to ask, which was, maybe, you mentioned 4X games and RPGs, these sort of terms that are a little bit, folks might not know what that means. So I was wondering, with specifically on 4X games like Civilization, what is it in your opinion that makes that a game like that a good thing to analyze through an archaeogaming perspective?
Well, with 4X model video games, it's specifically an abbreviation in terms of strategy games. The 4X stands for explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate, which, not a huge surprise. It gives you that kind of icky feeling when you think about it and you look at the history of settler colonialism, particularly here in North America. So these games tend to be turn-based and based on or real-time strategy titles like Civilization, Age of Empires, that sort of thing. And what I find really interesting there, and why I think it really focuses on archaeogaming, is that these are real cultures that the game models itself off of. So we can look at things such as representation, how different cultures are represented, and how settler colonialism is dealt with in the game, all the way through to really issues of how, for example, the technology tree is structured, right? Does the evolution of technology work that way? Is there really an evolution of technology in the real world? And looking at particularly how there's sort of a Eurocentric basis for all of that kind of model of game.
Yeah, they're often also set up like where you can play as China or America or the Lakota or different the Mayans. You can be these sort of groups from all over the world, but everybody has to kind of go through the same. Everybody has to discover the wheel, and then they have to discover masonry, and you have to go through this set thing. And so that's been something that's been criticized for a long time, and yet these games are still massively popular. And I play the heck out of those games. I've been playing Civilization since Civ 3, which came out in the in the very early 2000s or late 90s.
I got you beat, baby. I haven't been playing since Civ 2.
Oh man.
Hey, Mike, this is Scott. I had a question for you on Civilization. Are there a couple points, maybe like a hit and a miss in your mind of what they've done really well, or maybe what is like the ugh moment, like you said?
Oh, here we go.
There are definitely a couple of those. So in terms of what has been done well, sorry, I'm trying to
find one thing that's done well.
Something like that. For example, one of the things that's really done well is the most recent incarnation of Civilization 6. In particular, their Gathering Storm expansion. By doing that, they've been able to add in not only more civilization and more game options for players, but they've been able to introduce things such as climate change and issues of sustainability and so forth. So that's a big plus that they've recently had. In terms of big minuses, if you take a look, particularly the depiction of native peoples and indigenous peoples in Civilization has been really, really poor. With a few notable exceptions, like if you look at Civ 1, 2, and 3, there are no Native American wonders at all, but anywhere from 4 to 6 American ones, meaning like U.S. American. There's in Civ 4, there's 1, and in Civ 5, there's 2. And in terms of those, all of those are South American. In all of the 6 iterations of Civilization from 1991 to present, there isn't a single example of a wonder of the world that is North American indigenous.
So we're missing
Mayan,
a huge
Aztec, or Incan.
Missing a huge part of the culture. Anna, if I could bother you, maybe your favorite game, and the same question: what's good and what's really bad?
Oh God! Oh no!
Putting you on the spot.
Scott's throwing curveballs here.
Oh gosh, that's such a hard question, Mike. You got an easy one. I think I would say my favorite game is Mass Effect. I think at this moment, which is a sci-fi game, which is a little silly with this context here. But one of the Mass Effect games is about the human exploration and trying to find a new frontier, a new home for themselves on another planet after the fall of Earth, pretty much. So in that way, it kind of relates to Archaeogaming, and we can look at it critically through the lens of Archaeogaming, but it's a little different, and you have to really, really think about it critically as an archaeologist to make those connections.
Yeah, I think Mass Effect is an interesting one. Like all good sci-fis, like Star Trek and other sci-fis before it, it's got all kinds of things that are we can recognize in our real world, and I think Mass Effect's got some good archaeology. It even has an archaeologist in it. One of the characters.
Got archaeology in it.
Yeah, it's got a character who is like a space archaeologist, like an alien archaeologist, and she does some questionable things. I don't think she's a great archaeologist by our ethical standards, but that's so even games like that can have stuff like that in them. So,
Hey,
Absolutely, yeah.
just gotta say this in, and it kind of reminds me that if you want to send in comments or questions or whatever, you can send them to info@icrvradio.com, or right there on the screen on which you're logged in. There's a comment area. You can send that to us, like we did from Briandra, I think. So proud of my Archaeogaming fam. Bill, Anna, and Mike are awesome, and so proud of them for having an opportunity to talk about this really cool subject area of archaeology. So that's nice. And this is, what is the audience profile that these archaeogamers are created for? Thanks for helping me figure this out. Oh, well, there's one from Ingrid.
audience profile, like who do we see as kind of who we think we're speaking to with this? That's a great question. First of all, to Briandra. Briandra's a friend of ours. We're just salting the comment section. So that's cheating. We cheated.
We still love her.
Yeah. We were talking about this, but early. Yes, before we got started, we were talking about this exact question: who is the sort of audience for this? And this made me think when I was making the YouTube channel, that's a question you have to ask yourself if you're trying to make anything public facing. Who is this for? Mm-hmm. Why are we doing this? Why not just speak through the normal ways that we do as archaeologists? Well, there are some people who are interested in archaeology, maybe some millions of people. There are billions of people who play video games. So there's this huge audience of folks who play games, who love them, who think about them, who play games like Civilization, like Mass Effect, like Tomb Raider, or ones that have obvious examples of archaeology in them, and ones that don't, that maybe we want to think about in different ways, but who don't know anything about archaeology, or how to think like an archaeologist, or how thinking like an archaeologist might make it so you can enjoy a video game even more, which I'm a firm believer that it does. You can bring that perspective. So to me, I think that's at least some of the audience that we're reaching out to, is this big group of people who don't know anything about archaeology, have never heard about it, or they have, even worse, misconceptions about archaeology that come from the media they've consumed all their lives, or what's in the news about archaeology. And this is a place we can meet them halfway. We can say, oh, here's something, here's a shared interest, here's the thing we've got, and we can use that to make this kind of like Anna, like you were speaking about before, how even in this classroom, yes, it's a way of opening a door to students, and it can do the same to a broader public audience of all ages, anybody who's ever picked up a video game before, which is a whole lot of people. So that's my answer. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that question.
Well, let me ask a follow up to Ingrid's question to the two of you guys, and that is just because I think I have a lot in common with Ingrid.
Which is, what the heck are these people talking about? What is this?
So, are we talking about applying the discovery and analytical tools that you would use in a field and applying them to a video game? Is that what we're talking about? So that it's just a different medium through which you fine tune your skill sets that you would normally be applying to in the physical world.
Absolutely. I think that's one.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
application
Anna.
of it. Oh, sorry. No, you go on. You go on.
You go ahead.
Let's do Anna first, and then we'll go to Michael. Yeah, we can do. We can get you both of them.
That's absolutely one way you can use it. In doing so, I've met a lot of archaeologists who play video games now. It wasn't something that I knew before. I thought I was the only one before discovering all this. But after meeting so many archaeologists who are also gamers, I've noticed that a lot of them really like the lore in games and want more out of the games that they're playing that isn't already readily available to them. The lore, the story of the game, the little details, the connections between characters, the connections between places, the reason why there are certain quests, the reason why there aren't certain quests. And so they really dive into the game that way. They consider themselves, obsessed with lore before, but now they realize that's an umbrella of archaeogaming, and by using the archaeological perspective that we're all taught and trained to have, they can get more information out of the games that they really, really love and more context. And that's what we do with the sites that we work on, too. That's how we dig out more information about the sites that we work at.
Excellent pun. That was a good pun. I like that.
Mike?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that I can sort of say that I get from Archaeogaming. One of these is that, first of all, I'd want to expand the definition beyond video games. When the discipline was first sort of outlined and defined by Andrew Reinhard, he defined it as the archaeology in and of video games. But I would expand that to include basically Bill's definition that he gave us, which is the intersection of archaeology and gaming, to include all forms of gaming, including board games, role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. Anna and Briandra and a number of other archaeologists and I actually have a bi-weekly Dungeons and Dragons game we play where we explore all sorts of archaeological issues. We've recently explored things having to do with antiquities trafficking and issues of repatriation and consultation, collections-based research, how should collections be managed, and all through this lens of gaming. And I think that one of the things that this offers both to scholars and to students, which are effectively scholars and students of the same thing. Bill, I don't know if you and Anna have experienced the same thing, but I feel like I learn just as much from teaching as I do from research. But I think that the really cool thing about games is they're experiential, right? You're in the world. And so particularly, both inside and outside of the classroom, gamification, game-based learning it's a great way to sort of experientially learn archaeology without necessarily being in the field, which is an amazing thing to do.
I need to read this from another listener. Mass Effect Andromeda also raises some interesting ideas about colonialism and diasporas, not fully tackled in the text of the... Yeah, well, like I said, I have my issues.
Okay.
Not fully tackled in the text of the game, since it's an area already occupied by people, and yet the Milky Way species, refugees, are staking claims.
Yeah. I was just going to throw out that, I'm not an archaeologist. I'm not an archaeologist by training. So when I started doing archaeology, I think, and learning about a lot of what's gone on in the history and how indigenous peoples have been treated and how there are a lot of underrepresented people in the record, I started to apply that, or at least think about that, when I watch a movie or play a video game or read a book. So I think that that's a great thing. When it goes back to what you said, Bill, that you're hoping that these gamers come into it. Not that you can't still watch that video game that has a lot of flaws in it and enjoy it, or a movie or read a book and enjoy it, but at least you come in and understand where the deficiencies are in the true history of some of what you're seeing and reading and playing.
Yeah, I think that's really important. This idea that it's important to be critical of media, even while you enjoy it, right? I think I can speak for a lot of archaeologists that we all love us some Indiana Jones movies, right? Or like, well, some people don't maybe, but we all were exposed to that as kids, and we watched those movies uncritically, perhaps. And then as we learn more about archaeology, we can bring that criticism to that. And that was something I was trying to say before, which is that ability, bringing that to games, actually enriches them. It makes us able to think about them more critically, thoughtfully, get more out of them artistically, kind of engage with the artists who made these games, because absolutely they were, at least a lot of the times, I think, intentionally putting those themes in there. They want people to pull those themes out. They want people to experience that, like any good artist does. And these skills that we have as archaeologists, even if you're not a professional, trained, quote-unquote, archaeologist, and Scott, I think it's crazy for you to say you're not an archaeologist. You have like as much experience as almost anybody I know in the business, even just because you had another job for a while. It's you can bring that and just enrich that experience in a really amazing way. Yeah. So one thing that keeps coming about, we're touching on all these. Everybody's brought up these different examples of real world problems, politics that exist in archaeology, right? We talked about, diasporas and indigenous rights, and we've touched on a couple of these different things. And one of the ones somebody mentioned was antiquities, trafficking, and looting. And I thought this is a thing that's really, again, it's in the news. We hear about it all the time. We hear about the Hobby Lobby case, and we hear about these examples of looted artifacts or stuff that's at the British Museum. There's calls for it to be repatriated to the countries where those things came from, because they were taken maybe in not such appropriate ways. I don't want to get too into it and let everybody speak to that. But some video games, some of the most famous archaeology video games, for instance, Tomb Raider, which is an old game now, relatively, and like the Uncharted series, which is a game that maybe some of our listeners know, which stars a guy who's not necessarily actually an archaeologist, but is doing archaeology-like things. Those games are effectively like looting simulators. That's what they are. Like, right, they're about going in. Tomb Raider is literally called Tomb Raider. And just think of the name of that game, right? And that's one of the most famous video game franchises that there is. So I was wondering if anybody could speak to that, like, our thinking critically about games, does it allow us to get at this really important issue in the real world, which is the issue of antiquities trafficking, looting, site destruction, repatriation, those sorts of things? If I don't know if Anna or Mike, you guys have a thought on that.
Come on.
I don't know. Anna, I can jump in if you're right. I don't want to. I didn't want us to have to cage match style fight to the death to be the one to answer this question.
Jump in ahead. Go for it.
Thank you. But I think that this is part and parcel of the public perception of archaeology. The public perception of archaeology, if it's not, oh, you're really into dinosaurs, right? Yeah. Then it tends to be focusing on the idea of treasure hunting. Like the top questions that I get, if it's not the dinosaur one, are, oh, like Indiana Jones, or do you get to keep what you find, or what's the most valuable thing you've ever found? What's the coolest artifact you've ever found? And those are the questions that sort of miss the point that we as archaeologists are, in fact, we are anthropologists. There's the famous saying by, I forget whether it was Willie or Phillips, that, archaeology is anthropology or it is nothing. Because we study people. Trying to say that, archaeologists are all about artifacts is sort of like saying that astronomers are all about telescopes. They're the artifacts and features and sites. These are the data by which we understand past peoples. That's really what we want to learn about. And unless you happen to have a DeLorean that goes 88 miles an hour, or a hot tub time machine, or a TARDIS or something like that, you're not going to be able to do direct observational research of past peoples. And I think that that's the thing that's so often missed, is the importance of context, the importance of understanding things in context, and also the importance of cultural heritage to people who have had that cultural heritage stripped from them, such as indigenous peoples all over the world, such as peoples living in countries in the Middle East and North Africa and Cambodia and countless other places where, valuable material parts of their culture have been looted, trafficked, laundered, and then end up in some antiquities dealer's showroom in Manhattan during Asia Week.
Yeah, I don't know. The only thing I'll add to that is just that, just like how movies that have portrayed and romanticized this type of activity, like Indiana Jones, games can do that too, and they continue to. And so if we want to make it, we've been talking about how movies need to move away from that for decades. Are we doing that with games too? So this is a place where archaeogaming scholars can influence the real world, I think, in a positive ways, to bring that message of, hey, we should maybe not depict that as something that's good and romantic and exciting, and maybe we can problematize that a little bit. But Anna, did you have a thought on that as well, or?
Yeah, I did. So one of the coolest things about doing Archaeogaming for me is getting to connect with people outside of archaeology, right? I think we all mentioned that's one of the joys we have with doing this kind of public outreach, this kind of alternative form of archaeology education, and showing people that, for us as Archaeogamers, we're not one-dimensional archaeologists. We have interests outside of archaeology. And I've now had many conversations with fellow gamers and game developers who are mostly shocked that a conversation with an archaeologist isn't as difficult or as scary as one might think, especially when we can level with them and speak on something familiar, which is games. So something as silly as Lara Croft or Nathan Drake from Uncharted, we can all laugh and agree that those guys give archaeology a bad name. Lara Croft is a terrible archaeologist. She claims to be one. And Nathan Drake is a professional ARPA violator, essentially. But the people we talk to and the people we tell these things to, they remember. And then they go on and they laugh about this with others and say this kind of thing, right? Like, what a terrible archaeologist, right? This is looting. I feel wrong for doing this kind of thing. And at least within the gaming community, this is how that spreads, that gets out to more people. We fight the misconception this way and also share with people more about, beyond unromanticizing archaeology, explaining exactly what we do, because some of the conversations I've had with game developers lately is, oh, I didn't know I could go to an archaeologist and ask these kinds of questions. I didn't know exactly what I could turn to an archaeologist for. There's a general misunderstanding, or game developers have a difficult time understanding what the difference is between an archaeologist and a historian, and which one to go for which information. So they just turn to the historian in most cases, not knowing what they can go to an archaeologist for. And as we continue to fight, hey, we're not Indiana Jones, hey, we're not Lara Croft, hey, we're not Nathan Drake, we also have to fight and show what we do on paper and what we bring to the table should a game development team or a movie studio, et cetera, turn to us for consulting, right? So that's another thing I wanted to make sure I said with that.
Yeah, do you guys see a time where, in most games there's a character arc, especially in an RPG style game, right? You get to make choices. You can either be a good guy or the bad guy. Do you see there being an arc where you can be a good archaeologist or a looter?
That's an interesting question.
Oh, God, we don't want to give people the choice.
Yeah, it's a hard,
but they're all looters now.
Yeah, so so for those who don't know, RPG stands for role-playing game. We want to make sure we do all our acronyms justice, just in case anybody doesn't. And that's a really broad set of games, but ones tend to be in which you make choices and you level up your characters and give them skills and those sorts of things. So, yeah, this is an interesting question. It's sort of a philosophical question about how you want to tackle these sorts of questions in the real world that I don't know if I've got a great answer for, because I could see an argument for both. One, by giving somebody that choice, they are naturally going to engage with that choice, and they're going to have to think about what they do, and they're going to have to feel the feelings of doing the bad thing. Whereas the opposite philosophy is that it's just not good to give people the choice to do terrible, horrible things in games, but games do that all the time.
All the time.
Right? There's games where you just play straight up like, you're just shooting people and running people over cars, doing horrible, violent stuff. So I don't know if I've got an answer for that, but I guess I could see an argument for both. I think the idea of, you know what this brings up for me, guys? An advantage of games as a form of storytelling and as a form of engagement and education is that they're interactive. So unlike, say, like you watch a film, a film is passive, right? You want most of the time, except for maybe like really experimental stuff. Normally, you just, you're going to go to your Rocky Horror Picture Show, midnight show or something, right? But normally you just watch it. But a game you play, right? And that's more meaningful than it sounds. You have to manipulate the character. You're doing the things. You're putting yourself into the game in some ways. And I've seen some great teachers using games to teach because this is a really powerful tool. So I don't know, for these sorts of moral questions, that's a powerful tool potentially. visually, right? Rather than showing somebody a movie that says, here's Indiana Jones doing some looting, and here's a documentary about archaeologists that's maybe equally as entertaining and fun, and saying, look, this is bad and good. In this, you are asking the player to actually experience doing the bad thing. And I don't know how I feel about that, but it does bring up, that's a power of games as a tool for teaching and for experiencing things.
Yeah, I think I got caught up on.
Sorry, go ahead, Donna.
Yeah, we'll do Anna first, then we'll go to Mike. I got to remember to give you guys turns. Let's do Anna first, then we'll go to Mike.
All right. So, like, I think what I got caught up on is if a player is playing as an archaeologist in a game, there shouldn't be a choice. To be an archaeologist on paper, you shouldn't have a choice to loot. However, if you're playing as something that isn't labeled as anything, you know, I recall having conversations with my students when I was in grad school on a particular game where a quest required the player, to go in and steal something and give it back to the community that it originally belonged to, and Robin Hood it essentially. And at the end of the quest, the player had the option to keep it for themselves and receive a bunch of bonuses that wouldn't have been unlocked any other way, or give it back to the community as promised. And so that was a conversation I remember having with students. Just how do you feel about stealing it back? Going through the action of stealing this. How do you feel about giving it back to the community? And do you feel as though they rightfully, should obtain that object and keep it? Or did you keep it for yourself, and why? And how did that make you feel? So there's situations like that totally can, be an archaeogaming topic with people for sure, certainly.
What do you think, Mike?
I think I'm so glad that you had Anna go first, because that was an awesome answer to that question.
Yeah, it was.
Now, I love the idea of that, and I'm glad you brought up the idea of a repatriation mission, because that's already starting to be done. Yeah. For example, there's a repatriation mission in Red Dead Redemption 2, for example. But more than that, I think that other games like Tomb Raider or Uncharted can create protagonists who are ethical archaeologists and still maintain those exciting elements of the game. Particularly if you look at antiquities trafficking, this trafficking isn't being done by the more cuddly of smugglers and traffickers. The same people who are trafficking in drugs and weapons and other illegal contraband are trafficking in antiquities. Sometimes more in antiquities than in other things, because the enforcement on antiquities trafficking is less than the trafficking in drugs or weapons, etc. And you look at, say, the work that groups such as the Antiquities Coalition have done in connecting the practice of cultural racketeering and looting to organized crime, and in some areas of the world, terrorist organizations. This is something that can be applied in games to make them just as violent and just as exciting as their counterparts, but have the titular heroes fighting against traffickers and fighting for repatriation against some of those darker elements. So, there's definitely those options there, and it's just as fun and just as exciting for players.
I always follow the good character arc anyway, so I would have been a good archaeologist if we had that option.
There was a study done, somebody, BioWare, who makes the Mass Effect games, which is one of these games where you can pick the good guy, the Paragon options, or the Renegade, the bad guy options. And they did a study, something like 93% of players pick Paragon options, which are the good guy options. So not that many players actually pick the bad guy options. Everybody wants to be a good guy most of the time, contrary to popular belief.
Society.
But I like these ideas a lot. I like those ideas a lot. Red Dead Redemption, by the way, is a cowboy game, for those of you who are following along who maybe aren't gamers. It's an extremely good set of cowboy games. What would probably be seen as something of a pinnacle in games as art. Like they're doing something more in that game. There are meaty themes in that game. That game is about stuff. It's not just a game about shooting things and whatever and blowing stuff up. It's a game with some, which is, it doesn't surprise me. I haven't played it yet, Red Dead Redemption 2, but it doesn't surprise me that there's an antiquities repatriation mission in it. That sounds right for that game. So yeah. Yeah, I got to keep track of the time here. I have no idea how we're doing. We got time for some more questions.
Yeah,
good.
We're doing good.
All right, good. So, Anna brought something up way back, quite a while ago, that I wanted to circle back around to, which I thought was kind of important, which was this idea of archaeologists, because some of our audience here are archaeologists who have maybe participated in archaeological digs, or they're doing stuff with FOSA and ASC, and they've developed some of these archaeology skills. So I was wondering and I'll start with Anna because it was you who brought it up before. What do you think some of those? What's a skill that we as archaeologists have that we can bring to games? You got into this a little bit, but I was just hoping to expand a bit. Some skills that we as archaeologists can bring to games that give us a little bit of a different experience there, that let us... You mentioned the lore stuff before. Again, another definition. Yeah. Lore is like the background story, the kind of history of the world of the game is what we call lore within video games.
The world building,
yeah. The world building. So anyway, I don't know if you wanted to expand on that a little bit, and then maybe we'll do Mike afterwards.
Sure, yeah, because, that was one of my favorite things back when I was teaching, is just using games for students to practice the kinds of things that we're teaching them in the classroom and in the field. And a lot of those things being, like I said, attention to small details, attention to material culture and material culture usage, the understanding of human activity across the landscape. That's one thing. And then, like Mike said, our anthropology backgrounds, because we understand where game developers are coming from, where they get their ideas, but also human nature in general. And sometimes that applies to the human nature of the characters within the games themselves, depending on, what kind of game it is and how much work was put into that aspect of it, right? So those are some of the things that we can utilize. And I think I mentioned before just the aspect of doing a pedestrian survey through a game. That's something that I would talk to students about doing, is picking an open world game. Bill, you might have to define that again, or define another game term, but an open world game, having a student go through that and survey, essentially go on a hike and survey the environment regardless of what the quests and the missions are trying to get you to do, and take notice of the environment and see if you can flesh out the region and the world around you without being told what you're looking at by the game itself. And, something I thought about with that is it's kind of like Easter eggs being left for us by the artists and the game developers. They put everything in the game for a reason, regardless of if the game itself talks about these things or not, and we as archaeologists can notice them and appreciate them and see where the game developers are coming from, why they put the remains of a wagon out in this area where there isn't a road, why they do that. And I'm sure if we were to talk to the game developers and say, hey, I noticed the remains of that wagon, the game developers would say, shit, well, I put that there for a reason. There's supposed to be a road there, and the quest kind of goes off this way, and this is just kind of a hint to you that you're in the right area, but a lot of people don't pick up on this kind of thing, so it's really cool that you caught it. And that's some of the really cool ways we can use Archaeogaming to, practice these skills that we pick up as archaeologists.
Or that's the where the expansion pack is going to lead you, right?
Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah, right. Exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, an open world game. As I said, give me a definition for that for everybody. Yeah, an open world game is a game that the name suggests, right? It doesn't have levels. It doesn't send you. It's not like Mario, right, where you go level 1 to level 2. Instead, the game just drops you into a big landscape, and you go find stuff to do, or the game tells you what to do. But one of the greatest pastimes in open world games, going all the way back to the origin of the genre, is to completely ignore what the game is telling you to do and just go wander off into the woods, right? And I would say that's a very archaeological thing to do, to just to that cute, use that that little inkling of curiosity to go try and find, what have these artists put here for me to find? What have they sort of put out there, right? In the same way that we do that with archaeology, yeah.
Find all the berries to pick, but they don't do anything in the game. But you go and you do it anyway.
You can pick them. You pick up all the trinkets, every trinket. We love that. It's the material culture. It's our artifact. I don't know, Mike, did you have a thought on this?
Well, I think that there are all sorts of really cool skills that archaeologists have that make them good at video games, like thinking fourth dimensionally, looking at how things change over time. If you look at particularly games that involve past things and past ruins, like a lot of the games that we've mentioned. These also include like cultural competencies, experience with collaborative practices, questioning and challenging sort of dominant beliefs and practices. But I mean, really what archaeologists can do with past cultures and games, any player can do too. They can ask themselves as they play a video game, why did they put that design element there? You know, how are these characters represented within the game? Like, what are the underlying structures of the game world and the inequalities and stereotypes present? Like, is this an accurate representation of history? And if not, then why not? I don't know if any of you have seen there was a stand-up special by Kumail Nanjiani called Beta Male, where he talked about playing Call of Duty, and they had a video game environment that was set in his city of Karachi, which of course is in Pakistan, where they speak Urdu, but all the signs are Arabic. And he sort of jokes about it and says all they had to do, you know, people's individual hairs in the game move as they move. The people in the game sweat. All they had to do was Google Pakistan language, but they didn't do it. And I think that that's part of that element, is that we need to ask ourselves, you know, the same questions that we would about the real world. You know, what is going on? Why is it going on? And what are the sort of structural inequalities present that allow this to continue to go on?
Nice.
Yeah.
So we only have a few minutes left. So the last thing I wanted to bring up was to maybe give you guys a chance to talk about anything that you want to bring up that's in the art, something maybe you're working on that you're engaged with, or maybe take a second to talk about the Archaeogaming Collective, which we've mentioned a couple of times. You know, just so we can leave the audience with ways they can find some of the cool ways they can engage with this little discipline if they're interested in doing so. So maybe we'll do Mike first this time, and then we'll go to Anna.
Oh, sure. So the Archaeogaming Collective, you can find us on Discord. We are absolutely amazing, especially the two people who are here from the collective with me on this call. You can check out any of our yearly Archaeogaming cons on YouTube. We have all three of them that we've had now are up and available on YouTube if you search for Archaeogaming Con. Both Anna and I were in one about the role of online communities in archaeogaming. And then there are other great organizations, too. I'd also encourage checking out the Save Ancient Studies Alliance, which actually has archaeogaming-based teaching modules that they are developing for use in the archaeology classroom as well. So those are a couple of great organizations to talk about. As for myself, I'll be presenting at this year's American Society for Overseas Research in Boston in November, talking about colonialism, migration, and 4X model games like Civilization at Society for Historical Archaeology annual meeting in January. I'll also be with Bill. I think you're also going to Kaniha, right?
Oh, yeah. Council for Northeast Historical Archaeology.
Yes, meeting in Plymouth, Massachusetts this November. And I'll also be at the Northeastern Anthropological Association meeting in Madison, New Jersey in March. You can find me on Twitter at VTechRules, on Facebook and LinkedIn as Michael Zimmerman, and through the Anthropology Department at Bridgewater State. You can also find me, Anna, Briandra, Lisa, and our wonderful DM, Daryl, at our Twitch streams for the Welcome to Goblin Town D&D game, which is awesome and a great opportunity to explore archaeological issues through roleplay.
Cool. So we're coming up on our last couple seconds. I don't know. Maybe Anna, do you have one thing you want to say, like a thing that you want to pitch? I know Mike touched on a lot of them.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to take up so much time.
Basically, just rehashing it. Join the Archaeogaming Collective. Play more games. Think critically of them and practice being an archaeologist in your games. And yeah, check us out on the Archaeogaming Collective. You can find me online as Short Round, despite all the Indiana Jones bashing. Short Round with an E at the end. You can find me on Twitter as that. And I will be at the Society for American Archaeology in Portland next year talking on archaeogaming and the role of mentorship in archaeology. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
And Bill, how do people find you?
Yeah, so absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Archaeology Game or on YouTube, which you should definitely do and go and subscribe and like and do all that stuff, at Video Game Archaeology, youtube.com/c/Video Game Archaeology. And I'm doing all that same stuff that Mike and Anna said, so get involved with that stuff if you're interested. Come check it out. Anybody's welcome, even if you've never touched a video game before. Seriously, come hang out with us, because it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you can find the Friends of the Office of State Archaeology at FOSA, FOSA-CT.org, or follow us on Facebook. Hey, on behalf of Sarah Sportman and myself and the Friends Group and ICRV, thank you all for joining us today. Bill, Anna, and Mike, it's been a great and interesting topic.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.